Now, there's masses of material in the series about the possibility of a lost civilization and presenting the evidence for a lost civilization.
Hidden for centuries, a forgotten fortress has been found in Spain, and it's changing everything we thought we knew. This pre-Roman Celtic stronghold shows just how advanced ancient defenses really were. This discovery brings us one step closer to finding out the secrets of a civilization far ahead of its time.
And it makes sense when you look at these incredible structures that we don't really have an explanation for. Mm-hmm. And when we think about the conventional dating of modern history and modern civilization, they want to put it at around 6,000-ish years ago.
That's right.
1. Castro Valin. Archaeologists in Spain were surprised when they discovered a 5th century fortress instead of the Iron Age fort they had been expecting. Using laser scanning, they found the remains of this medieval stronghold hidden under a thick forest in northwestern Spain. The fortress, called Castro Valente, has 30 towers and a long defensive wall. It was likely built around 400 AD to protect against Germanic invaders after the Roman Empire lost control of the area. Originally, people thought it was built by Celtic tribes in 900 BC, but new evidence shows it was actually from the early Middle Ages. The fort was probably made by locals to defend themselves during chaotic times. After about 200 years, it was abandoned, maybe because it wasn't needed anymore. 2. Las Cogotas. Las Cogotas is an archaeological site in Cardenosa, Avila, Spain, known for its ancient cultures. It has 2 important phases, Cogotas I from the Late Bronze Age and Cogotas II from the Iron Age. Cogotas I, which was around from 1700 BC to 1000 BC, is famous for its black pottery with simple designs. This culture may have been connected to other groups like the Belbeca culture. Later, Cogotas II appeared around the 1st millennium BC, possibly influenced by the Celts. This phase is linked to the Vetones, a group that lived in the area and created stone statues of cattle called veracos. 3. Pantheon. The Pantheon in Rome is a famous building that was originally made as a temple for all the Roman gods. Its name comes from Greek words meaning all gods. The first Pantheon was built by Marcus Agrippa around 2725 BC, but it burned down in 80 AD. Another version was built, but also got destroyed. The current Pantheon was rebuilt by Emperor Hadrian between 117 and 138 AD, and that's the one still standing today. The Pantheon is known for its huge dome, which was a big deal back then. The dome is 142 feet wide and has a round opening at the top, called an oculus, which lets in light. The front has 16 giant columns that lead into a big round room. In 609 AD, the Pantheon was turned into a Christian church and is still used for services today. It's also a popular tourist spot and has inspired many buildings around the world. 4. Trajan's Column. Trajan's Column is a tall monument in Rome, built in 113 CE to celebrate Emperor Trajan's victories in the Dacian Wars. It stands about 125 feet high and is made of 19 big marble blocks stacked together. The column is famous for its spiral decoration, which tells the story of Trajan's battles against the Dacians, who lived in what's now Romania. If you stretched out the carvings, they'd be about 656 feet long. The carvings show scenes of battles, troops, and Trajan himself, who is always shown larger than the others to highlight his importance. Originally, the column had a statue of Trajan on top, but it was replaced with a statue of St. Peter in 1588. The base has more carvings and an inscription from the Roman Senate honoring Trajan. The column isn't just a monument, it's also a historical record of Roman military life and tactics. 5. The Arch of Titus. The Arch of Titus is an old Roman monument built around 81 CE by Emperor Domitian to honor his brother, Emperor Titus, after he died. It celebrates Titus's big military victories, especially the capture of Jerusalem in 70 CE during the Jewish War. The arch, about 50 feet tall, stands on the Via Sacra in Rome and is made of marble. It has one main opening with fancy columns on the sides. The arch is decorated with detailed carvings showing Roman soldiers carrying treasures taken from the Jewish temple, like the menorah and silver trumpets. One carving shows Titus riding in a chariot, being crowned by the goddess of victory. Another one shows Titus being carried to heaven by an eagle, symbolizing his godlike status after death. This arch is one of the oldest surviving Roman arches and has inspired many others, like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. It's a symbol of Rome's power and history. 6. Sunken Roman city of Baiae. Near Naples, a really unexpected discovery was made underwater, a Roman villa's mosaic floor. The floor was found on the seabed, but it used to be part of a fancy porch in a home that overlooked the sea in the ancient town of Baiae. Baiae was a popular spot during the Roman Empire, where famous people like Julius Caesar and Emperor Nero had homes. The area sank underwater due to a natural event called bradyseism, where the ground slowly sinks. The mosaic, made from reused pieces of marble, dates back to around the 3rd to 5th centuries CE. The walls of the room collapsed, breaking the floor into pieces, but divers and archaeologists are working to uncover and restore it. 7. Atapuerca. Atapuerca is a super cool archaeological site in northern Spain, located in the province of Burgos. It's famous for having some of the oldest human fossils in Europe, with bones that are nearly 1 million years old. This makes it a treasure trove for scientists who want to learn about early humans and how they lived. The site was first discovered in the early 1900s, when workers were building a railway through the Atapuerca Mountains. The digging exposed caves like Grandolina, Galeria Elefante, and Cima de los Huesos, which were full of ancient tools and human fossils. Since the 1960s, archaeologists have been digging there, finding evidence of humans living at Atapuerca for over 1.2 million years. 8. Altamira Cave. The cave of Altamira, near Santillana del Mar in Spain, is super famous for its amazing prehistoric cave art. Inside, there are ancient drawings and paintings, mostly of animals like bison, and even some cool handprints. These artworks were created a long time ago, around 36,000 years ago, with the most famous ones being from about 17,000 to 11,000 years ago. The artists used natural colors like red ochre and charcoal, and they were really clever, using the cave's bumpy walls to make the animals look 3D. The cave was discovered in 1868 by a hunter, and a scientist named Marcelino Sanz de Sautuola studied it in 1879 after his daughter, Maria, spotted the paintings. Now, Altamira is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and to protect the art, visitors can see a replica called the Neo Cave instead of the original. 9. Los Mearis. Los Mearis is an ancient archaeological site located in Spain, about 17 kilometers from Almeria. It's super important because it's one of the most significant Copper Age sites in Europe, dating back to around 3200 BC to 1800 BC. The people who lived there were really advanced for their time. They knew how to farm, work with copper, and build strong defenses. The settlement was protected by 3 stone walls, showing they needed to defend themselves from others. About 1,000 people lived there, and they had a social structure with different levels of importance, which we can tell from how they buried their dead. The site also has a large necropolis with around 80 tombs where people were buried with their belongings like tools, weapons, and jewelry. It was discovered in 1891 during railway construction and has been studied ever since. 10. Endless Column Complex. The Endless Column is a huge sculpture made by a Romanian artist named Constantin Brâncuși. It's in Târgu Jiu, Romania, and is part of a group of sculptures that also includes the Table of Silence and the Gate of the Kiss. The column is made of 15 stacked diamond-shaped pieces, with half pieces at the top and bottom. It's about 29.3 meters tall, which is nearly 98 feet. The design looks like it could go on forever, symbolizing infinity. Brâncuși created the column as a tribute to the Romanian soldiers who died in World War I. 11. Antiquera Dolmans. The Antiquera Dolmans are three huge ancient stone structures in Antequera, Spain. They were built between 3750 and 1800 BC, way back in the Neolithic and Copper Ages. The biggest and oldest is the Dolmen of Menga, made around 3650 BC. It has a long hallway that leads to a big room with three giant stone pillars. Next is the Dolmen of Viera, built between 3510–3020 BC. It also has a long corridor, but it leads to a smaller rectangular room. The youngest is the Tholos of El Romeral, made around 1800 BC. It has a long hallway that leads to two round chambers with false domes. These dolmens are really important in Europe because of their size and how they were built. They line up with nearby natural landmarks like La Peña de los Enamorados and El Torcal Mountains. 12. Bailo Claudia. Bailo Claudia is an ancient Roman town near the village of Bologna, about 14 miles from Tarifa in southern Spain. It was built at the end of the 2nd century BC and became a big hub for trade and fishing, especially known for making garum, a fish sauce that the Romans loved. The town was perfectly located on the northern shore of the Strait of Gibraltar, which made it easy to trade with North Africa, particularly with Tangier. Bailo Claudia thrived during Emperor Claudius's rule, and he even granted the town special privileges. You can still see a lot of the town's original layout, like the main roads, a forum, temples, baths, and a large fish salting factory. But in the 2nd century AD, an earthquake and pirate attacks led to its decline, and by the 6th century, the town was abandoned. 13. Bucharest Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The Bucharest Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is a special monument in Romania that honors soldiers who died in World War I. It was first set up in 1923 to remember those brave soldiers who gave their lives for their country. A touching ceremony was held where a child, whose father died in 1917, picked one of 10 unidentified soldiers to represent all the fallen soldiers. That soldier was buried with full military honors in Carol Park, Bucharest. Over the years, the tomb has been moved around, especially during the communist regime in 1958, when it was taken to the Mearis Mausoleum. But after the fall of communism, it was returned to Carol Park in 1989, and later moved closer to its original spot in 2007. 14. Son Fornes. Son Fornes is a super cool prehistoric site near Montuïri on the island of Mallorca, Spain. It's really important because it helps us learn about the Talaiotic culture that existed in the Balearic Islands. People lived there for almost 2,000 years, starting around 850 BC. The site has three main periods: the Talaiotic period, where big stone buildings called talaiots were built; the post-talaiotic period, where new house styles and social structures emerged; and the classical Roman period, when the Romans influenced the area. One of the largest talaiots on the island is at Son Fornes, measuring about 17 meters across and over 4 meters high. 15. Cancho Rano. Cancho Rano is an archaeological site located in Altamira de la Serena, Spain, and it dates back to at least the 6th century BCE. It's one of the best preserved sites of the Tartessian civilization, which was an ancient culture in southern Spain. The main building at Cancho Rano is square-shaped, with a central courtyard and a deep moat filled with water all around it. The building had many rooms, some of which might have been used for religious ceremonies or as chapels. This place was really special for the Tartessians, and they likely used it for important rituals. There's even evidence that they might have practiced rituals dedicated to the Phoenician goddess Astarte. Around 370 BCE, the site was destroyed by fire and then sealed with earth, which helped preserve many artifacts like tools and jewelry. 16. Fagar Fortress. Fagar Fortress is an old castle in Fagar, Romania, with a long and interesting history. It was first built in 1310, on the site where a wooden fort once stood before it was destroyed by the Tartars in 1241. Over the years, the fortress was made bigger and stronger, especially between the 15th and 17th centuries. The fortress is shaped like a square, with thick walls, 5 towers, and a moat that could be filled with water to keep enemies out. It has 3 floors and was once home to several princes, with some parts showing fancy Italian Renaissance designs. Throughout its history, Fagar Fortress was an important military base, going through many battles and serving as a garrison. Later, in the 18th century, it became a prison, especially during the communist times in Romania. Today, after being restored, it's a museum where visitors can see old artifacts and learn about its history. 17. Roman Arch of Medinaceli. The Roman Arch of Medinaceli is an ancient stone structure in the town of Medinaceli, Spain. Built at the end of the 1st century AD, it was likely used as a grand entrance gate and to celebrate victories. The arch is pretty big, measuring about 13 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 8 meters tall. It has a large middle arch for carriages and animals to pass through, with smaller side arches for people walking. The arch's design is simple, with some parts worn down by the weather over time. 18. Emporis. Emporis is an ancient archaeological site on the Costa Brava in Catalonia, Spain. It has a long history, starting in the 6th century BCE, when Greek settlers from Phocaea founded a trading city called Emporion. This place was a busy spot where Greeks traded with the local Iberian people. Later, in 218 BCE, during the Second Punic War, the Romans took over and renamed the city Emporii. They made it a big, prosperous city, but over time, the city declined and was eventually abandoned in the 9th century AD due to invasions. Emporis is special because it has both Greek and Roman ruins. Archaeologists have been digging there since 1908 and have uncovered temples, public baths, mosaics, and old walls. Some of the important ruins include the Temple of Asclepius, the Temple of Serapis, and various homes and shops. 19. Roman Sarcophagus. A Roman sarcophagus is a fancy stone coffin used for burials, popular from around the 2nd century AD. The fanciest ones were made of marble, but some were made from other stones, lead, or even wood. Roman sarcophagi usually had a rectangular shape with a flat lid showing a picture of the person inside. Some lids showed the person lying down, like they were at a party. Some coffins even looked like troughs used for crushing grapes and had lion head designs on them. Most of the decorations were on the front and sides, since they were often placed against walls. They had carvings like garlands of fruit and leaves, Greek mythology scenes, and action-packed battle or hunting images. Some showed weddings or important moments from the person's life. These coffins weren't just for wealthy men, but also for kids, families, and women. They reflected Roman beliefs about life, death, and what comes after. 20. Castro de Santa Trega. Castro de Santa Trega is an old Celtic settlement in Aguada, Galicia, Spain. It lived from around the 4th century BC to the 1st century AD, during the Iron Age. At its busiest, around 5,000 people lived there, making it one of the biggest castros of its time. The site is on Mount Santa Trega, looking over the Minho River and the Atlantic Ocean. It had a stone wall around it, not really for defense, but more like a boundary. The houses were mostly round and grouped together, with a few rectangular ones. Only about 20% of the 20-hectare site has been dug up. Since it was found in the 19th century, archaeologists have discovered lots of artifacts like pottery, jewelry, and tools that show how people lived back then. 21. Chero De La Cruz. Chero De La Cruz is an important old site in Almedinilla, Córdoba, Spain. It was an Iberian settlement from the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC. This site helps us learn about how the Iberian people lived back then. The place is special because it's one of the few Iberian sites in Andalusia that has been dug up. The excavation has found some houses, storage areas, and defensive walls, but only a tiny part of the site has been explored, just about 2%. They've also discovered pottery, tools, and decorative items, which show what daily life was like for the people who lived there. 22. Castros of Galicia and Asturias. The Castros of Galicia and Asturias are old fortified villages found in the northwest of Spain. These sites date back from about the 4th century BC to the 1st century AD. They were built on hills to help people see enemies coming and to stay safe. These villages, called castros, have round or oval-shaped houses and big stone walls for protection. They often had streets and common areas. The people who lived here were Celtic and used a mix of their own and local building styles. Some important castros are Castro de Santa Trega, which has great ruins and views, Castro de Villadonga, with its well-preserved buildings, and Castro de Coaña, known for its big size and strong defenses. 23. San Cebrián de Castro. San Cebrián de Castro is a small town in the province of Zamora in Spain. The town has a special church called Our Lady of the Assumption. It was first built in the Renaissance style, but it was fixed up a lot between 1841 and 1887, so it looks different now. In the town, you can find some old houses with fancy coats of arms, including one from the 18th century and another from 1766. There's also a royal coat of arms from 1770. San Cebrián de Castro's population has been dropping for a long time because people moved to bigger cities for work. As of 2018, there are about 250 people living there, with 163 in San Cebrián and 87 in the nearby village of Fontanillas. 24. The Dying Gaul. The Dying Gaul is an old marble statue in the Capitoline Museums in Rome. It's a copy of a Greek sculpture made around the 3rd century BC. The original statue was probably made in bronze to honor a victory over the Celts by a king named Attalus III of Pergamon. The statue shows a Celtic warrior in his last moments. He looks really sad and is lying down with a wound on his chest. 25. The Ara Pacis Augustae. The Ara Pacis Augustae, or Altar of Augustan Peace, is an important monument in Rome. It was built in 13 BC to celebrate the peace that Emperor Augustus brought after his military wins. The altar was finished in 9 BC, after Augustus returned from his campaigns in Hispania and Gaul. It was originally an open-air place for sacrifices in the Campus Martius area. The altar is made of marble and has beautiful carvings on its walls. These carvings show ceremonies and myths and include important people from Augustus's time. The artwork represents peace and prosperity, celebrating Augustus as the leader who restored order to Rome. Over time, the altar got buried under river sediment and was mostly forgotten. Some pieces were found in the 1500s, but it wasn't until the 1900s that major digging and restoration happened. 26. Museu Egipci de Barcelona. The Museu Egipci de Barcelona, also known as the Egyptian Museum of Barcelona, is a special place for learning about ancient Egypt. It was started by the Fundatio Archeologica Clos and has one of the biggest private collections of Egyptian stuff in Europe. Inside, you'll find over 1,000 amazing items like sarcophagi, mummies, jewelry, amulets, and everyday objects from ancient Egypt. These items show us how the pharaohs lived and what was important to them. The museum helps people understand how ancient Egyptians lived, their customs, and their lasting impact on the world. 27. Gundestrup Cauldron. The Gundestrup Cauldron is a silver bowl from a long time ago, about 150 to 1 BC. It was found in a bog near Gundestrup in Denmark in 1891 and is now in the National Museum of Denmark in Copenhagen. This cauldron is huge, about 69 semitons wide and 42 semitons tall. It's made from super pure silver and has detailed pictures carved into it. The pictures show gods, animals, and mystical creatures, and they mix Celtic and Thracian art styles. There are animals like bulls, stags, and wild boars, and the central figure is a god with horns, thought to be Cernunnos. What other ancient advanced defensive designs do you think are hiding out there? Are there other ancient Roman inventions we still don't know about?